Hi all, too bad the end of class got sidetracked yesterday. So what I thought I'd do is just show you in a short little video the next step, especially for anyone who actually wanted to do any work during this week. So I'll pick up kind of where I left off. I've kind of adjusted things for filming. If you recall, this was the full photograph that I used as a resource. What I then did is I tried 3 different sketches, trying this in a square, in a landscape mode, and in a portrait mode. And because what I wanted to do was really show the strength of this boat near this tree, I went with the portrait mode for the demo. Truthfully, I like all 3 of them. I think they would work. I entered from this side. I see this. My eye moves left to right. There's some dark areas in here in contrast to the rest. So really all 3 would work. But I like this one here for the demo. So what I did next was show you how you can actually take and just do a quick little color study just to get some ideas of the colors you'd like to have in there. It's kind of sloppy, messy. If you recall, I had a dark bluish green here, and I had this kind of a little bit more brightish color down on the bottom. Just rub that into just a regular old sheet of sketchbook paper. It's not meant to be anything permanent. So what we're going to do now is take this, put it to the side. The next thing I did was to create a value sketch. And what a value sketch means is I take that other quick little sketch, I do another one, only I try to show the areas that are dark, medium, and light. And I sketch that in, and I can adjust that for the way that I want. Let me just slide this slightly over a little bit so you can see a little bit more during the demo. Truthfully, when I paint, I tend to paint more off the sketch than the photograph, because what I want to do is have my own interpretations of what's going on. What I've done down here is I'm painting on this slate blue paper, kind of for something different, to show people how it's like to paint on a toned paper that's more of a medium dark value. I have pressed in that same orangey color that I had, yellowy orangey color that I had on that sketch. You'll notice that when you use pastel paper with the tooth, the colors are going to look different, because what happens is this really ochre yellow can really grab on what's considered a sanded paper as opposed to just sketch paper. So what I'm going to do is take you through how I'm going to get this light color in by looking at the light values here, and this is where I have all of that. So I did the sketch ahead of time, so you didn't have to actually watch me do the sketch. You'll see the shape of the boat's going to show up pretty quickly by getting in this light color. And even though I may come in here and add something other than this ochre color, this light value of this ochre is going to remind me that this is where all those light areas are. Looking over at my sketch, and then I've got my notan here. I think I told you to just check the video. I use notans all the time, but you'll see that I've got lights up in here. So I can actually still put this yellow up in here, even though I'm going to change that to a reddish color. I'm going to put it in lightly, and that is going to remind me that that's where all those light colors are. And see what's happening here? I'm getting rid of that dark blue. It's going to be that nice little reminder that I'm going to put light colors there. Come up in here. I'm not going to fiddle around with this detail. That's an embellishment. I can do that later. I am going to put the ridge there where the, oops, went on a little crooked. I can sort that out later. There's buildings behind this. I am not going to be putting the buildings in. Now this yellow in the sky, not for an experiment. Let's put the yellow in the sky. I'm going to put it in lightly. I'm not as worried about the colors. If you are doing this at home and say, oh geez, that yellow in the sky is really kind of bright, that's okay. I could have done this just as easily with a blue, but I'm just sticking with the idea of just using the 2 tones to set up my design. So you can see pretty quickly, even though the red drawing lines, and I drew this in a red hard pastel, how quickly that design shows up. Okay, so now I had pre-chosen some colors yesterday. I've added a few more to them today. And I'm going to start with my sky. I typically always do start with the sky because what happens is that sets the tone. The sky's pretty stormy looking. There's lots of leafless limbs here. I'm going to get rid of most of that. So I know that's going to be a light color. So, ooh, look at that purple. That purple on that yellow looks nice. Use this little testing sheet. And that yellow is going to quickly disappear, and I'm going to have this really nice stormy blue that's going to go over the yellow, and I'm going to get right in there, and I can show, see the way that yellow is disappearing? Now I have a separation of the ground and the sky, and I've kept that sky really still light because I do want to show that storminess, that late storm that's coming in. I can add, so with this paper again too, the textured paper, putting the yellow down lightly first and putting this on top, I don't have a problem with that. If you're using a paper that doesn't have a sanded feel to it, you can ignore that yellow that went down. You can go right to a bluey or a purple or you know, some sort of a stormy looking color. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start working on this section here, just blocking it in. I've got a lot of neutrally looking colors, and this is still in the semi light area. Okay, that's a little bit darker, so that's perfect. And you can see here, I have that a little darker back there. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put some of that in to just show where the background is of that foliage back there. Come around. I'm going to use that same one and come up. I don't want this to be too strong of a contrast, but I still want it to be a contrast. So it's still falling in that yellow end. And see the way that yellow, I've already started to knock out a bit of that bright yellow, and I can just let that show through. I can use the same, changing my stroke now, using the side of my stick, and I'm getting some of this in here. Give a little bit more of a definition to the land that's there. A little bit of a slope, not much. Okay, perfect. From here, not that the painting is perfect, but perfect. This is going along all right. No mishaps. I'm going to block in some of my darkers. Now look at that. Look at how dark this is on that paper. And I've got a dark shadow here, but that dark shadow really, in real life, I don't think it would be that dark. So let's try another color here. And we're going to go for another shade of a blue. Ooh, okay, so this one's slightly lighter. That's a good one. Again, testing it up there helps a lot. That one's too blue. See how bright that is? So we're not going to use that. Okay, let's try this guy. Too blue. Look at that. He's standing real. Oh, he might be nice for the, I'm going to keep him to the side. He'll be nice for those tires that are there. So I don't lose that. Okay, well, I guess I didn't do a good job of choosing some of these colors. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this one. It's not as dark. I'm going to put it on light underneath. And you'll notice what will happen is at the bottom of that boat will show up. I did draw in the, I'm not really actually sure what they're called. They hold the boat up when it's out of the water, but I'm not going to worry about losing those lines because what I can do is I can get them back in afterwards. There's one that's in the foreground. I'm not adding that one, so I'm ignoring this right here, and I'm ignoring the rope that's cordoned off the area. Don't need details of those guys right there for now. Just gonna color that in. I am going to put these little windows in here because they're going to help with the angle of that boat. So I don't want to lose lose those angles, and there's a little bit of a ridge of light and shadow there, so I've created that. There's a, okay, come in here, there's this section of the boat that comes down. That's going to wind up being two-tone, but for now we're just going to keep it one, and we're going to get the shadows that are down in here. And now I can leave some of the paper showing for where I've got like that medium color. So you can see this is not really quite as dark as this area. So I can just be a little bit more circumspect on where I put some of this dark. So we're going to come in here. And this, oh, look at the way that sky's showing up now. I like that violet. We're going to just keep it simple. I have to remember this, this here, circle here, shows me that the sunlight is coming from above, which is why we don't have a lot of shadow here. So I'm just going to come through. The base here is in light. That's showing up. And in my no-tan, what I did is I had created more of a darker area back here. It's still the same color. The pressure, if I put this down a little bit lighter, I do not wind up with as dark of a color. And I can come across and I can add that. And I'd also left the paper there, so I could have chosen to leave the paper show through. It's nice when you use toned paper, you're able to actually let the paper do some of the work. My no-tan shows that I had created a tree that had a limb that came out in this direction. I'm going to stick that in, and if I decide I don't like it, I can get rid of it later on. Okay, coming up pretty quickly, getting these darks and lights. Okay, now I'm going to start adding some of the color back into that sky that's in the background. And between the color of the paper and that violet, I've really got a nice stormy looking start. I'm going to move this box of colors over here. And this is see that? That's a little too light for that sky. See how light that looks there? So we're not going to put him there. Testing on the side helps a lot. He's still too light, so we won't have him there either. I'm just looking in my box for colors that, okay, let's try him. Oh my goodness, I keep picking up all these like, oh, that's a nice color though. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to see some of this light peeking through. I'm just going to use that, and I'm just going to drag it down side of my stick. I'm just dragging. I tend to do a lot more of the painterly strokes, and that was something that we learned about in the class last session in April. And the painterly strokes means that I use my stick really more like the way a painter would use a brush. I do a lot of side strokes. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to go with that, you know, rather than waiting for me to find the colors in my box. Okay, let's get into the light that's hitting the inside of the trees. And I'm going to go back to these colors. And this is lit on the side. You can see in my no-tan and in the photograph and in the value sketch that the light's coming down and it's having the shadowed part underneath. So as I put strokes in, and this is more of your linear or your drawing type of a stroke, I'm being very careful to make sure that I'm putting my lines so that my shadow remains on the correct side, which is the right side. I'm putting these in a little lighter so they stand up. And this guy here, I'm going to have him come out because I really liked the way these were coming around the top of that boat. This same color here really is going to pick up some of the light area that's down in here. So again, I'm going to go back to that other sort of stroke mark making. I'm going to get rid of some of the yellow that's down here, get that into a little bit more of a neutrally color. And I'm going to go back to this one here that I had, that I made my original marks, and I am just going to bring that over. These are fairly close in value. This one's slightly darker than that. If we test them here, we had this one, press that hard, and we had this one, and you can see that this one is a lot. This is actually a violet kind of a cast that's going on in here. Okay, I want these this area here to feel as if it's a little bit more like the shrubs that are behind there, those reeds. And this is a color that I had chosen and used it yesterday. I'm going to hold it on its side, and I'm just going to come back in here. One of the rules with pastel, and remember, rules are just rules for you to learn something. What you can do is you can then decide when it works well. So what you'll do is practice with the rules and then decide when it is that they're really important to use and when you can break them. So anyway, typically you put the dark colors underneath and you put the light colors on top, but you can break that rule if you're careful with your values. I should have stated that. Gonna get a little bit, this is like a little darkish greenish color. I'm gonna just bring that up. I'm gonna tone down some of that dark that I had there, just coming in so it's not so drastic. Keeping in mind those trees. I can take the same one, and now this is going to just come around. Okay, let's get a little bit going on in the boat here. And we have variations of, we know that boat is actually a reddish color, but we don't really want to use a really bright red, because that red, look at how, there it is there on the dark, there it is there on the light. Let's look at how more intense. You can see that lovely light color that's there. Here it winds up looking a little darker. So if I put it where the yellow is and I put it where the dark is, I'm going to have two different feelings. Okay, so we're just going to get that in there. We're going to keep this. And again, this is just the beginning stages. I'm going to get back in on this one and do a little bit more after the video's done, but you'll be able to get an idea. See, now this is not really that dark down here, so I can just drag this slightly over that and see the way it maintains that darkness because it's got a dark color underneath. Again, with with a hard pastels, or with pastels that, or with pastel paper that doesn't have a lot of tooth, what you may want to do is just push the darker pastel into the paper like I showed you yesterday. Okay, come a little bit over here. Now I'm going to choose an even lighter one. This one's a little bit more on the pinky side, and that's okay because I can tone that down later. And I'm just going to come in, get some of those light areas. Remember, I've got a shadow up there, and get these little here. Don't want to go too much on the really super light over on this side because I want this side to feel like it's got a little bit more light on it. It's always good trying to come up with some sort of area that's showing some contrast. And there is like a line there, so I could just do a very light, did too much of a line there. I'm going to have to knock that down. I don't like that. Side stroke coming in. Okay, I got a little bit of a light here that I can see, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put a little bit of light there. So that's coming up. He's a little cockeyed up there. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. Okay, he's feeling very gray there, and I see like a little bit of a greenish color that's going on. So we're going to choose a very kind of a dull green. Okay, let's see. Dull green. Okay, well, this isn't, let's see what this is. Oh, okay, this guy will work. Okay. So I can take, and I'm going to drag him over that. And see, a very light drag means that what happens is the color that's already there remains, because very, very, very super light. If someone knocked me, this pastel would fall out of my hands. I'm holding it really super light. And I'm going to use this for some of my extra lines where the coming out. Oh yeah, there you go. Look at that. Oh, that green's lovely. It's lovely. Okay. And do not try to draw all those crazy lines. Just do a kind of a random mark making that's going on in there. Bring some of these guys down in here. And this area here is really pretty light, so we're going to just come down. We're going to add that there and get some there. Okay, and now I'm going to come in with a fairly light color, and that's going to denote where I've got these real bright areas of the light white. And this is a yellowy white. I'll put it here so you can see it. Okay, I got a little bit of a green in it too. And I'm just going to show you how you can just use the side. You can do pretty thin lines with that. You don't have to worry about all lines being totally connected all the time. I'm not going to do all that around there, but I am going to do this up here. Get a little bit of a curve going there. Got these different shapes that are falling in line, and see that pole that's there? If I take this and put it on its side, I try to find an angle. Oh, that one might work. Look at that. Put that right there. And I'm just going to come through and see where there's light hitting the inside. This might be a little bit bright for this. I can knock it down later, but I see partial circular areas where those are. Those insides of the tires. See a little bit of a light down here. Get that in. Oh, what I didn't do this guy down here. This is where those blocks are holding it up. I'm going to get a little bit of a yellow, bluish color in there. Kind of cool that down. It's in the shade. Okay, I'm going to come through with a little bit of the blue. It really looks so green in real life. It's a really, really light green. So this blue can be in some of the areas that it'd be a little bit more shadowed. I can knock that down. And there's a little bit of shadow that's falling, light that's falling underneath this guy. And I'm going to take some of that blue. I'm going to put it here and run it along there. So that boat's showing up. Okay, so now if I squint at that, I've got a lot of lights here. What I have over here, whoops, let's get, there's a little bit more of a shadow that's falling there. Let's put these in quick. Okay, so now I have to look at this as a color study. This is an 8 by 10. I've got, I'm feeling as if this area here needs to have some lights on it. Part of that is to counter some of the lights that are hitting here. So I'm going to come in with that same light blue. I'm not going to reinvent by bringing in another color, and I'm going to just top a couple of little side strokes that we'd worked on in that last class, just where I think that the light would be hitting. And again, I know the light's going to be on the left side of this tree. A few more marks coming down. Just selective. Don't need to have them all over. A few linear marks there. And I'm going to be coming in with, I really like this color that's back here. I'm just gonna add a few more highlights in there just to And it's more up and down strokes. And we've got this light that's falling here. That was too bluey, so I'm just going to take and I'm going to add this lovely light color that's falling here. Drag it slightly over some of these areas. Don't worry about going over your lines. This is just another study. Okay, and going to take this same color and I am going to see how it looks on top. Oh, here, let me put it here. That might work there. Very, very light strokes. And see that bluish area there? Very, very light strokes. Going to get that curve there. Going to get this curve that's there. Bringing it up, just letting this side look a little bit lighter than the other side. Side of your finger, I can bring that line up again. Again, you can do this on a pastel sanded paper. It's not as easy to do that on your Canson or your sketch pad paper because it tends to mush it, whereas what I've done here is I've just like kind of merged it into the, and there we go. Okay, got some light that's hitting a few of these that are holding up the boat. There we go. I'm going to check the time here. Okay, good. And now I'm just going to come in with that darkish color that I used in the last one that I started in class, just to create a couple of little areas where I wind up bringing a reddish, dark reddish color in here. The colors in here are really nice. Now what I have to do is I have to squint my eyes and I have to look at the way the light is falling. This is very light. If you wind up with things that are too light, you can just take, press, and lift up. If that doesn't work, what you can do is you can take a brush lifts, and I can just lift, and I just want to take up little bits, and if I wanted to really tone it down and get rid of a line, I can just come in here and just knock some of that pastel off. Having different size brushes handy really helps with that. Okay, and then we're going to take, this is that bluish gray color, and we're just going to come around and we're going to give the feeling of some of those tires there. This is really about the impressions of what we're seeing, not the details, because clearly if I was going to do a detailed painting, I'd be doing it in more than the allotted amount of time. I've chosen to do this little demo here, but I think you can really see how, oh, this color here, see how quickly this, oh yeah, look at that. It's not really as dark. I should have tested it over here. It's not as dark as I thought it was. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this dark green. Okay, and because I use green in here, I'm going to come down, give a little bit of shape and form to some of these branches that are here, just by going over those dark areas. And I see some of my reddish lines that are still showing through. I don't mind that. I kind of like that appearance of the red showing through. Now, this is when you can also come in, and I've got too much light blue in here, so I can just very lightly knock it off. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got dust that's falling. That bothers me. I don't like that when I get a lot of dust. And once you start using your brush to lift off, you do wind up with more dust. Typically I would have my air purifier on, but it'd be too loud for that. That's knocked it back. Okay, so this is like a violet. Ooh, this is a violet-y color. Hold it on its side. Gonna get that light right up in here. And see, you notice I'm going back to where I had those dark marks. So now I can come back in and I can give a little bit more shape to some of these limbs that are here. And I can keep some of that blue showing through, and I can okay, so now what I'm doing with this violet is just disrupting it a little bit, coming back and forth. And what that's doing is that's giving me the feeling of some of those branches that are leafless without drawing every single one. I feel like this area has gotten extremely busy, really, really busy. I spent too much time fiddling around with it. So I'm going to come back in and I'm going to cut into the bottom of this with that original yellow. Okay, sometimes I think it's handy to see how your instructor kind of goofs up on something. How do I fix something that's actually not working? And then I come in using those same colors I had before. Okay, I like the bottom of that better. And go and look at my sketch. See, I started going way too light. Look at that value. I've got those all as darker. And okay, you can see I'm putting a dark over a light. I have to be a little careful because that dark can create what appears to be a pretty muddy look. More so on paper that's not sanded. That does look better being dark, that is for sure. Okay, get some of that there. Don't go too crazy, Betsy. Okay, get some of that under here. If I have that violet all by itself there. Okay, now I'm just going to kick up a little bit of that sky back here, and I'm going to go in with a kind of a muted medium blue. And I'm picking one that has a coolish feel to it because let me just double check up there. Yes, I had the light here. Because if I went for an aqua blue or a warmer blue, it will lose that feel of being a wintry day. Well, the tree I'm not happy with. I'll be quite honest. You know, I fiddled way too much with the tree. I should have just left it alone and not added so many highlights that I did in here. The problem was I looked more at the photograph than I did at my sketch. My sketch left the lights. Okay, so just as an example of how we put it together, that gives you an idea of how you can just quickly do some little paintings. Don't get caught up with the detail, but if you heard me enough times say, I was really choosing by how light or dark something was. And yes, I can go back in and I can sort this out, spend a little bit more time. My goal was to keep this to about 30 minutes, and it looks as though that's about it, just a little over. And keep your little sheet on the side with the two base colors that you use underneath. Do your testing over here, add it over here, and colors will change the way they look depending on where they are. This same red here on the light paper looks a little dark. Look at how light it looks up there on the dark paper. So have fun experimenting and putting the colors in different places. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.